My name is Lily, and today I'll be presenting my research on core aesthetics. So, what are core aesthetics? Core aesthetics refer to online subcultures or trends defined by a specific visual style, often focused on fashion, decor, and lifestyle, and typically identified by the suffix core. You may see videos online with different visual clips strung together or collages of random items. These aesthetics provide a shortcut for expressing a mood, personality, or worldview through curated imagery and stylized references. At their core, no pun intended, these aesthetics are even shown as digital mood boards, collections of images, colors, textures, music, outfits, or even phrases that evoke a particular vibe or feeling. On social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, or Pinterest, you'll often see collages, montage videos, or curated photo dumps, all carefully selected to align with a chosen aesthetic. These visuals may seem random to an outsider, but to those who follow a specific core, they feel meaningful, familiar, and emotionally resonant. For example, cottagecore is an aesthetic that idealizes a slower, simpler life rooted in nature and domestic tranquility. Visually, it's characterized by soft pastels, flowy prairie dresses, dried flowers, and cozy rustic settings like candlelit cottages or gardens in full bloom. Cottagecore is deeply connected to activities like baking bread from scratch, foraging herbs, writing in journals, or embroidering by hand. It creates a mood of peaceful nostalgia and offers an escape from the fast-paced, tech-driven world we live in. This aesthetic gained significant popularity during the COVID-19 pandemic when many people craved comfort, stability, and a return to basics. But beyond that, it also speaks to a desire for self-sufficiency, environmental mindfulness, and a romanticized view of rural living. Next up, kidcore is a vibrant and playful aesthetic that draws heavily from the visual culture of childhood, particularly from the late 90s and early 2000s. It's defined by the use of bold primary colors, reds, blues, yellows, as well as rainbows, chunky shapes, and whimsical patterns. Common imagery includes toys, alphabet blocks, cartoon characters, or Lisa Frank, animals, and school supplies like crayons, stickers, and lunchboxes. The fashion side of kidcore often features denim overalls, graphic tees, colorful beaded jewelry, light-up sneakers, and accessories like hair clips or scrunchies. Online kidcore is expressed through bright collages, toy collections, and photo filters that mimic retro camera effects. The aesthetic has a distinct, carefree, handmade feel, often embracing a slightly chaotic, scrapbook-like style in digital spaces. Lastly, and one of my personal favorites, weirdcore is an aesthetic that captures a surreal, dreamlike atmosphere, one that often feels both eerie and strangely comforting. It's characterized by low resolution or distorted imagery, liminal spaces like empty hallways or vacant parking lots, and unsettling text overlays that read like cryptic messages. The visuals often mimic early internet graphics, analog video quality, or outdated technology, giving it a nostalgic yet uncanny feel. Familiar objects are placed in unfamiliar or nonsensical settings, evoking a sense of disorientation, like you're seeing something from a forgotten dream. Colors are typically muted or heavily filtered, and there's a strong emphasis on ambiguity and emotional response over clarity or realism. Essentially, you can make a core out of practically anything. But why are we so obsessed with these curated styles? In this video, I'll be exploring popularity of core aesthetics. What drives the widespread fascination with core aesthetics in today's society? My hypothesis is that core aesthetics are popular because they fulfill a psychological need for belonging by allowing individuals to express curated identities through simplified, branded visuals that are easily understood and performed in online spaces. To begin, I looked into existing research on digital identity, internet trends, and aesthetic communities. Dark academia is more than just an online trend. It's a digital aesthetic that offers a form of escapism. It lets people imagine themselves in elite academic settings that may not be accessible in real life. It romanticizes things like knowledge, learning, and even mortality, allowing users to create idealized versions of themselves as poets, professors, or intellectuals. Research on dark academia reveals that its most compelling feature for many users is the ability to envision themselves in a role connected to academia, roles they may not otherwise have access to, whether it's imagining themselves as a professor at a prestigious university or a poet seeking inspiration on a remote moorland. This aesthetic provides a means for users to project an idealized version of themselves into these academic worlds. However, as dark academia gained popularity, its focus began to shift. What started as a celebration of learning and thoughtful reflection evolved into a more surface-level trend. The aesthetic became centered on fashion, makeup, and perfectly curated book collections, rather than actual academic engagement. Social media platforms like TikTok and companies like Barnes & Noble quickly caught on, commercializing the aesthetic with marketing phrases like "as seen on TikTok" or #BookTok favorites. This transformation turned academic imagery into a backdrop for personal branding, often prioritizing aesthetic over substance. This shift reflects a broader trend in digital culture where organic communities built on shared values can be co-opted by consumerism. While dark academia still offers a space for self-expression and identity building, it also became a tool for marketing. The lines between genuine interest and curated image continues to blur. Cottagecore is a digital aesthetic rooted in simplicity, nature, and comfort. For some, it's a mindful lifestyle choice focused on wellness, slowness, and intentional living. For others, it's more performative, offering an escape into a dreamlike version of rural life through things like vintage fashion, picnics, and cozy, idyllic visuals. What makes cottagecore especially unique is its flexibility. It doesn't have a fixed definition. For one person, it might mean baking bread and living off the land. For another, it's about appreciating the visuals, soft lighting, rolling meadows, and illustrations of the countryside, living in classic novels. Whether actively participating or passively admiring, users are able to curate their own version of a comforting and idealized world. Books also play a big role in this aesthetic, not just for what's inside, but for how they look and feel. Illustrated editions of Victorian novels, for example, are often cherished for their visual beauty as much as their stories. These books become part of the aesthetic experience, helping people connect emotionally with the world they're imagining. Cottagecore is also seen as a reaction to modern life. In an age of constant digital connection and hustle culture, it offers a kind of resistance, slowing down, savoring the moment, and embracing a less pressured lifestyle. While it's largely spread through social media, cottagecore ironically pushes back against the very system that promotes overproductivity and digital overload. Ultimately, cottagecore is more than just an aesthetic, it's a cultural movement and form of identity construction. It lets people reimagine their lives in softer, more manageable terms, creating a sense of comfort, peace, and even quiet rebellion against the fast pace of modern society. Corecore is a digital aesthetic that captures the emotional chaos of growing up online, especially during the pandemic. It's not just a style, but a raw emotional response to the confusion, isolation, and fragmented identities of a generation that has never really known life offline. This aesthetic exploded in 2022 through platforms like TikTok, where videos under the hashtag Corecore reached over 1 billion views. These videos typically blend contrasting clips, like a comedian talking about loneliness, paired with a powerful movie scene, to create emotional collisions that speak directly to viewers' inner worlds. It's not about intellectual commentary, it's about feeling seen. At its core, Corecore uses the core label to create communities based on emotion rather than aesthetics alone. Unlike other aesthetics that center on visual or fashion, Corecore is about emotional resonance. It gives people a place to process their feelings, especially in a world that often feels fragmented and overwhelming. In many ways, Corecore revives Romantic-era values, prioritizing emotion over logic and imagery over explanation. It embraces the idea that some experiences can't be put into words and instead uses visual collages to express what language often can't. The fast-paced, disjointed editing style mimics the scattered nature of modern life, turning digital chaos into something relatable and even beautiful. Ultimately, corecore is more than a trend, it's a cultural and emotional mirror. It reflects a generation searching for meaning, identity, and connection in a hyper-digital world. And while it's deeply personal, it's also widely shared, creating a kind of communal space where vulnerability isn't just accepted, it's the whole point. In my secondary research, I also explored the psychological side of aesthetic experiences and how they shape our well-being and identity. Studies in psychology show that our engagement with beauty, whether through art, nature, or personal expression, is more than just superficial. It actually plays a crucial role in our emotional health, helping us reflect, connect, and find meaning. One study developed a scale to measure aesthetic needs across 3 key areas: the desire to aestheticize everyday life, the need for contact with creative works like art, and the urge to experience beauty in both built and natural environments. What they found is pretty powerful. People with high aesthetic needs tend to feel emotions more deeply when engaging with beauty. They're more grateful, more curious about nature, and even more sensitive to things they find unpleasant. These people also tend to have greater aesthetic intelligence, which means they can integrate beauty into how they think, feel, and act. And that leads to something bigger: transformation. It's not just about enjoying beauty, it's about using it to shape how we see ourselves in the world. This research suggests that aesthetic choices, how we dress, decorate our space, or even scroll online, are ways we create self-coherency. We use these aesthetics to organize our experiences and present a version of ourselves that feels authentic and meaningful. And here's the most important takeaway: fulfilling aesthetic needs is directly tied to emotional well-being. Beauty can trigger gratitude, and gratitude boosts happiness, so what might look like a trend, like dark academia or cottagecore, is actually much deeper. These digital aesthetics resonate because they help people regulate emotions, build identity, and feel connected. They meet complex psychological needs in a world that often feels chaotic. So while aesthetics may seem surface level, they're actually really central to how we find stability, purpose, and emotional fulfillment, especially in the digital age. Research shows that internet aesthetics function as more than just styles. They act as interpretive toolkits that help individuals reimagine their lives and form personal meaning. These aesthetics allow people to reshape their everyday experiences and identities through a lens of imagination and emotional resonance. Hashtags like cottagecore or dark academia don't just label styles, they qualify cultural materials like music, movies, outfits, and even hobbies. These labels are often used loosely, letting people create a personal narrative around the things they enjoy. Because of their flexibility, internet aesthetics have influenced everything from home decor and literature to fashion and career choices. What's especially noteworthy is how these aesthetics blend unrelated cultural materials. For instance, dark academia might group together the Iliad, Lord's music, and the Dead Poets Society, without a clear reason why. The categorization is intuitive, based on how the content feels, not on traditional logic. This highlights a shift from fixed categorization to emotional resonance. Historically, aesthetic labels have helped express things like class, taste, or social identity. But internet aesthetics challenge those older systems. Instead of consistency or clear boundaries, these aesthetics thrive on personal interpretation and emotional association. They're less about community and more about individual self-reflection. In the conducted interviews, users didn't describe these aesthetics as a way to bond with others. Instead, they used them to frame their own experiences, like seeing a walk through the woods as a cottagecore moment or viewing a study session as part of a dark academia lifestyle. These frameworks help them build a more cohesive self-image and find meaning in everyday life. Ultimately, the rise of internet aesthetics reflects a broader cultural shift in a world where traditional structures are weakening and cultural change is constant. People are turning to these flexible, emotionally driven labels to organize their lives. They offer a sense of subjective certainty and self-actualization, helping individuals interpret their realities through the lens of imagined, idealized experiences. In conclusion, internet aesthetics serve as a powerful tool for personal meaning-making. They help people shape their identities, find coherence in their experiences, and express who they are in an incredibly digital and fragmented world. I conducted a survey with 112 participants to explore how people engage with core aesthetics. I gathered responses through a variety of social media platforms, Snapchat, Instagram, Reddit, and TikTok. Most respondents were in my age group, 18 to 24, with a few under 18 or between 25 and 34. The majority identified as women, and 96 said they use social media regularly. Before diving into the questions, I gave a short definition of what core aesthetics are. If someone wasn't familiar, the survey ended there, but most respondents said they were either familiar or somewhat familiar and continued with the rest of the survey. When asked which aesthetics they had seen or engaged with, the most common answers were cottagecore being the top, following dark academia, clean girl, weirdcore, corecore. Others mentioned niche styles, scenecore, dopamine decor, showing just how broad and personal these aesthetics can be. People interact with core aesthetics in different ways. Most participants consume aesthetic content passively, like watching TikToks or YouTube videos. Over half said they dress or decorate their spaces in ways that reflect a certain aesthetic. 37% follow aesthetic-themed accounts. A smaller group creates content themselves. Only 7% said they don't engage with aesthetics at all, showing that these styles are a big part of how many people experience and curate their everyday lives. When it comes to what people value most in aesthetic, fashion and clothing were the top priority. That was followed by mood or emotional tone, music, and interior design. Visual style and filters were important to 41% of respondents. While fewer people mentioned community, some did highlight the shared values within aesthetic subcultures as important. In the bottom box, I also added what some participants had to say after selecting the other option. Aesthetic content often made people feel inspired, creative, or nostalgic. 40% said they felt seen or understood by the content they liked. Others felt indifferent or even pressured or isolated by certain aesthetic expectations. In open-ended responses, people expressed a range of feelings, from admiration to frustration, especially when aesthetics felt overly commercial or inauthentic. I asked the participants to rate their agreement with the following statements. A lot of people agreed with most of the statements that core aesthetics help me express my identity, aesthetics help me connect with like-minded people online, core aesthetics allow me to escape or romanticize aspects of daily life, certain aesthetics make me feel nostalgic for a time I didn't live through. Most people either agreed or strongly agreed with these statements. I also asked the participants to rank what they believe most influences the popularity of aesthetics. As you can see, viral social media trends were ranked most influential by a long shot, and people found access to fashion products or props to be the least influential, which I found to be quite interesting. Based on the other results, they believed fashion was very important to them, so it was interesting to see them rank it low on influence of popularity. To wrap up, I asked an open-ended question: why do you think core aesthetics are so popular? I categorized the responses into 7 key themes: sense of belonging and community, self-expression and identity, romanticizing everyday life, social media and influencer culture, consumerism and capitalism, the use of categories and labels, trends and virality, and I also added an 8th box, other and random. You'll see why. Sense of belonging and community. This theme reflects how core aesthetics help people feel connected to others with similar tastes or values, even if only online. And I'm not going to read through every response individually, but you're welcome to pause and read through them if you like at any time. Self-expression and identity. Many participants saw core aesthetics as a tool for expressing themselves and shaping how they want to be seen. These aesthetics let people explore different sides of their identity, whether it's soft and vintage, bold and alternative, or chaotic and surreal. Romanticizing everyday life. This theme speaks to how people use aesthetics to turn ordinary moments into something more meaningful or beautiful, like making your morning coffee feel like a scene from a movie, or viewing a rainy day as part of a dark academia vibe. I used to do this one on the school bus. I'd look out the window if it was raining or something and pretend I was in a movie scene. Social media and influencer culture. Core aesthetics are deeply tied to the platforms they live on. Influencers, trends, and viral content play a big role in popularizing certain aesthetics. People engage with these styles not only for personal reasons, but because they're widely promoted and constantly visible. Consumerism and capitalism. Some participants were critical on how aesthetics often become commodified. They noticed how brands latch on aesthetics to sell products and how participating in a style sometimes feel tied to buying certain clothing, decor, or products. The use of categories and labels. Aesthetics give people a way to label and organize their interests, tastes, and identities. With so many overlapping styles, emotions, and media preferences, aesthetics offer simple categories to help make sense of it all. Trends and virality. Some respondents mentioned that aesthetics gain popularity simply because they're trendy. Platforms like TikTok rapidly push certain looks or styles to the forefront, creating short-lived but intense waves of interest. And lastly, we have the other or random category, because some of these I didn't know what category to put them in. But the top 3 had a lot of different categories incorporated in them. Take time to read them if you'd like. I thought they were pretty interesting, which is why I kind of took them out from a specific category. I feel like the people who wrote these were somewhat passionate about the topic or had a lot of opinion on it, which I found cool and really appreciated. Yeah. So, was my hypothesis correct? At the beginning of this project, I proposed that core aesthetics are so popular because they fulfill a psychological need for belonging. I believe that these aesthetics help people express curated identities through simplified, branded visuals, especially in online spaces where visual cultures dominate. And based on both my secondary and primary research, yes, I believe yes, my hypothesis was supported. Let's start with my secondary research, which explored the psychology of aesthetics and identity. Studies show that our desire for beauty, whether in art, fashion, or everyday life, isn't shallow. It's deeply connected to our emotional health and sense of self. Research identifies aesthetic needs in 3 key areas: urge to beautify our lives, the desire to engage with creative works, and the need to feel emotionally moved by beauty in the world around us. People with high aesthetic needs often feel things more intensely. They're more reflective, more grateful, and more likely to use beauty as a way to make sense of the world. That's exactly what core aesthetics allow people to do. Whether it's viewing a rainy afternoon as dark academia or a bedroom setup as a dopamine decor, these styles help people build coherence and meaning in everyday moments. Even further, internet aesthetics act as an interpretive toolkits. They help people reimagine their daily routines, create self-narratives, and perform identity in fluid, emotionally resonant ways. They're not just about how someone looks, they're about how it feels and how that feeling can help someone define who they are. Through my survey of over 100 participants, I found that people engage with aesthetics not just for fashion or style, but for emotional reasons. They use them to feel inspired, to connect with others, to romanticize the everyday, and most importantly, to feel seen. Most participants said aesthetics helped them express their identity, and many found comfort or connection in the communities tied to them, even if passively. And with platforms like TikTok and Instagram pushing these visuals, they become easy to adopt, easy to understand, and incredibly effective as tools for self-performance and social navigation. So while core aesthetics may look like surface-level trends, what's underneath is much more meaningful. They're part of a broader cultural response to identity, connection, and emotional expression in an increasingly digital and uncertain world. But wait! I forgot to share with you guys my favorite core! Lilycore! Basically just a bunch of stuff I like. Just little bits and things I like, just the vibes. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed exploring core aesthetics with me. Let me know in the comments, what's your core aesthetic?